So, can the Gator basketball team actually win the SEC in basketball? I'm not sure I really clarify that, but we are 13-0 now, right? 13-0.
Yep.
Okay.
As
Just
of
got
today.
a 40 as of today. Yeah, 13-0. Got a huge win over Stetson. Do have some other big wins like North Carolina, Arizona State. No one that really jumps off the paper as like, okay, they beat that team. Now I know they can really beat anyone in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you really think that this Florida team can win the SEC? Now, do we want to do tournament or just regular season? Because those are two different things.
I'd say regular season because
Regular season.
tournament is squirrely. A lot can go into that. I mean, as
Like
we saw
year,
last year, like Micah got hurt in the championship game. Like, you don't know.
We made the championship game,
Yeah,
as the
and we were 6th seed, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm conflicted on how to feel about the basketball team at this point. I mean, not conflicted. Like, obviously they're good and they've been really fun. I'm conflicted about how high my expectations are exactly.
Yep.
Because, North Carolina, Arizona State, like, good wins for sure, no doubt about it. Still haven't played a team that's like a national championship caliber team yet. So we just don't know, and we'll know in a week because they open SEC play with Kentucky and Tennessee. So, see what happens in that. I mean, obviously you go 2-0 in that stretch. Like, heck yeah, they can win the
number
SEC.
one team in the country.
I mean, yeah, exactly. So I still think they can, though, because I mean, I haven't watched other than maybe Auburn, which Auburn has kind of looked like a wagon. They look really good. But other than, I mean, I think even like Tennessee, I've seen, Tennessee, I feel like has had moments where they look a little shaky. Kentucky's had some shaky moments. Like, I mean, obviously, who'd they get blown out by?
Ohio State.
That's right. Not a very good Ohio State team. So, like,
I mean, they're getting blown out by
not an elite Ohio State team is what I'm saying. Like, not on the same caliber. So, I mean, all these teams look flawed. And I mean, maybe Florida, I'm sure Florida has some flaws that haven't really been tested yet, but like, there's not really a clear weakness here. There's not really a clear thing that I point to and I'm like, this is going to doom the team in March. Like, maybe there, I could see things where, like, if you have a bad day in some regard, maybe, but not like what you typically expect.
Beat Tennessee. I'll jump on the wagon. That game is sold out on next Tuesday, so not this coming Tuesday, 7:00. Sucks it's a Tuesday game, though. Wish that was on a Saturday or even a Sunday. And the Kentucky game is at 11 a.m. on Saturday, a week from yesterday. So that's going to be a big one. Honestly, I think the biggest threat to the Gators being a possible contender or winning the SEC, I think we are a contender, but winning it is the fact that Auburn has just looked insanely good.
Yeah.
I mean, top 5 schedule in the country, and they only have one loss, and it was at Duke.
On the road to Duke, yeah.
Who was also a top 5 team in the country. Yeah. I mean, and then their other wins. It's not like they've beaten good teams, which they have. Like, they've beat Iowa State and Kansas, I think. Like, they've also,
I think so.
They've also blown out like everyone else they've played. We talked about Ohio State, who blew out Kentucky. They beat Ohio State by like 40 points.
Yeah.
I mean, anything can happen in a 1-game sample size. So it's like we can beat Auburn. I mean, at Neville though, I was looking at tickets to that game. Can you guess the cheapest ticket on Ticketmaster for that game?
To Auburn?
Florida at Auburn.
I mean, gotta be like over.
I'm gonna tell you it's more,
right?
I'm gonna tell you it's more. I knew it was gonna be more than your first guess. Way more.
Okay, so what's it like? $250, $300,
$500.
Wow, that's for a basketball game. That's crazy, man. That is unreal.
I mean, have you seen those videos of like Auburn fans camping out week before the game and everything to get tickets? Like our students. I mean, Auburn's different. Like our game against Stetson was actually sold out today. I mean, it was sold out. But
there was some controversy with the student section. Did you hear about that?
No.
I don't want to like misrepresent anything. I just saw some people on Twitter that were like complaining because apparently like they were selling, like, students couldn't get into the student section because they were selling student section tickets.
Students are away. Yeah. Students are away on Christmas break, so they were selling the tickets.
But like it was like there was a student, like multiple students that like wanted to go and like couldn't even get into the student section. Yeah. So like ones that were there, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about that. I just saw some people saying that on Twitter. I didn't know if you saw anything about that.
Oh no, I was at the game, but I did not see anything about that.
Gotcha.
But I mean, you talk about it. Where is the weakness on this team? I mean, you got good size, you got speed, so it's not just like you're too fast or you're too big, because they got a good little bit of everything. Like the biggest weakness probably is like turnovers, which it feels like those turnovers kind of happen that when they're like, I don't want to say like they're not locked in, but kind of they're just playing sloppy. It doesn't look like they're fully engaged. Like the Stetson game, a bit early on, they committed some turnovers. I mean, Walter Clayton, like, you can tell he's kind of, if Walter Clayton wanted to take over the Stetson game, he could have. But he kind of just took the game off a bit. I mean, you never want to underestimate an opponent, but I mean, when you're a 38 or 39.5 point favorite against somebody, you can do that and be fine.
And I don't want to make it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No one was that dominant in the SEC. It's anybody's title next year, I think. I mean, it could be anyone's title. I mean, there's so many good teams. There's 10 top 25 teams in the current AP poll.
I mean, was he talking about football, or I thought he might have been talking about football?
He might be, which would make more sense. But we're talking basketball. Sorry. That's why I was a little confused on how to do this segment. Kind of want to confuse people if we're talking about football or basketball. We're talking about basketball here. But you were going to say something? Go ahead.
What was I going to say? I was just going to say, honestly, I lost my train of thought. We can, you can keep going with what you're saying. I'll come back to it if I can think of it again.
Yeah. No, so I was talking like, where is the weakness on this team?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we saw when we faced a team like North Carolina, like we have really good guards for their size and speed. But like when you face a team like North Carolina, just has elite speed guards. Like they don't really do both well. They're just quick. Like we could get beat there, and we did against a good bit against North Carolina. Like that also is the fact that who has guards like RJ Davis who hit crazy shots in that game.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at Mark Sears at Bama. He's someone even last year when we didn't really have the good defense we do now. I mean, we went 2-1 against Bama. We lost to them in overtime, or was it overtime or regulation?
One of those games went to overtime for sure.
No, I can't think it was regulation because we went to overtime with Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's like, Mark Sears, he's possibly one of those guys. I mean, Tennessee's offense, like, it's so inconsistent, I feel. I mean, you saw in their Virginia game earlier this year where they scored like 20 points in the first half. I mean, 67 points against Indiana. So it's like they could. Chaz Lanier is a player not as good as Dalton Connect, but he's in that role that Dalton Connect was as a main scorer. Like Vescovi's having a really good season. It's like, if you can shut down Tennessee's offense, I think we could win that game. And it's at home. So really, it's just a matter of, is Auburn really that dominant? I mean, we saw them lose to Duke, a really good team still. But like, if we're good as Duke, then we could definitely beat them. I mean,
yeah.
Or we could win the SEC. So sometimes things also just have to fall your way. Because like we can lose to Auburn, but then they have their rivalry against Bama. Like they could lose to Bama, then slip up one other time. And I mean, it's going to be tough because I don't see us not losing at least 3 or 4 games. And that's like maybe best case scenario.
Yeah.
And I don't see Auburn losing more than 3 games in SEC play. So we basically have to play perfect.
Yeah, and going back to what you were saying about, like Tennessee being kind of consistent offensively and like kind of dovetails with what Rob said here, you got to score 90 to beat this Gators team. Like that's to me the most impressive thing about Florida is just how consistent they've been offensively. Like there has not really been an off night. Even when they're making mistakes, they still are productive. 12 of 13 wins in non-conference play came by double digits. That's unreal. So, ultimately, like, it's just, you have to be so good. And so, like, you look at a guy like Mark Sears, like, maybe he is individually a guy that can have that kind of game and go off like that. But can he do that while Alabama as a whole scores enough to beat Florida? Like, I don't know.
Yep.
And I also remember what I was going to say, just talking about the turnovers, not to make excuses for it, but I do think like an element of that is just the style of play of this team. There's so much movement, so much passing. And if you're just not in sync, like that's probably going to lead to a higher rate of turnovers. You know what I mean?
Yep. So when you look back at the team, they've scored in the 13 games. They scored over 80 points in 12 of them, with the one game being against Wake Forest where we scored 75, which is also a game that we won by 17 points. We had I think we were up by like 20. We had the backups in with like 5 minutes left. So that's a game. If there's a team that can hold Florida to under 80, with like Florida with Florida continuously trying to score, I mean, that might be the best defensive team in the country.
Yeah.
So like maybe Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee can beat Florida if Florida scores over 80 points. I mean, even if Florida scores 75, do you think Tennessee can win that game? I mean,
I think that's certainly any game where Florida scoring at least 75 or 80 there. It's shaping up to be a very good game for them.
Yeah. So it's really just a matter of like, does Auburn slip up enough? I mean, and do we not have any bad games? I mean, we lost to Vanderbilt last year in an SEC game. So, we can, it's not the same team, obviously, but like if you slip up in a game against Missouri, like none of these SEC teams are even bad. Like South Carolina, who we faced twice, I believe. We faced South Carolina twice. We could slip up at South Carolina. I mean, at Mississippi State's a really good team. So it's like, slip up. LSU. So it's a matter of avoiding those slip ups and then hoping that you outlast Auburn.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think Auburn's going to lose enough games, and I just don't know if we're that good yet.
And the defense is pretty good. It's not quite at the same level as what the offense is. I've also just had some games where teams shoot lights out against them. It's not really their fault. Giving up a lot of points, but
I mean, wow. Florida's defensive rating, it was like 21 a couple weeks ago. Guess what it is now? It's
Florida's like 12?
Yeah, 12. Exactly 12.
Wow. Nice.
Florida's defensive rating is 12. Offensive rating is 8th. Then you look at like other SEC teams. Auburn has the highest offensive rating in Ken Palm history right now. So they're obviously first. Defensive rating of 13th. Other SEC teams, Tennessee, offensive rating of 15, defensive 2. Bama, offensive rating of 6, defensive rating of 50th. Like that's where Bama really needs to improve if they want to win. And then Texas A&M, offensive rating of 41st, defensive rating of 6th. So I do think there's a path for Florida to win the SEC, but it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, there's just so many good teams. I think it's probably fair to assume you could go like 12-6 and still have be a top 15 team in the nation, like top 10 team in the nation, maybe even
12-6. As long as like one of those wins are against one of the top teams.
Yeah.
If we can beat a Tennessee I think Kentucky's going to fall off a bit. So I think we beat Kentucky. Like, is that Rupp? Like, but like if you beat like one of those top 20, top like 15, top 10 teams in the SEC, and you go 12-6, you probably get that top 3, 4 at the floor, maybe even a 2 seed, depending on how things go.
Yeah,
but you need one of those elite wins. If you remember last year, I think Florida was like the only team until that Vanderbilt game that didn't have a loss outside of the quad one.
Yeah,
and that Vanderbilt game ruined that. And that's why we ended up being a 7 seed instead of a 6 seed in last year's tournament. So just avoid those bad losses and get a big or a couple of big wins, maybe, and you can get a 2 or 1 seed, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a good chance that there's like 3 1 seeds from the SEC. Like, I don't think that's entirely out of the question.
I wouldn't say
maybe not good chance. There's a very realistic chance.
Yeah. Because if you're looking at the other teams, Duke is probably going to run wild on the ACC. So as long as they don't lose like more than 2 games in the ACC, even though they probably shouldn't be a 1 seed based on like their resume, they will be a 1 seed because like there's really good metrics and everything. And they are Duke. That's also a big contributor in that. But then you also have Iowa State, who looks really good. Although the Big 12, like, I'm not going to say it's going to fall off. It might be like the SEC in football this year, where like they still have like a really good teams, but they're not good enough to where they're not going to fall off to a decent team like a West Virginia or I was about to say Oklahoma, but they're not in the Big 12 anymore. Or a Houston. Like they're not guaranteed to win those games. they might not be that good. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
But yeah, the Big 12 looked like it was like so clearly going to be the most dominant basketball conference, but it's at least this year it's been surpassed by the SEC. We'll see if that's a trend, but
the bracketologist now has the Gators. So this is a net ranking. The Florida Gators are the 4 seed right now.
Yeah, I noticed that today. They got moved. They're up to 4. They're still at like 7 in Ken Palm, right? You said?
No, we're 6. Wait, are we 7? Maybe.
We were 7 earlier today.
7, yeah. However, we've closed the gap. It was like a 3-point gap 2 weeks ago, and it's now less than half a point.
Yeah.
So we can jump into that top 6. Beat Kentucky, and I mean, really, if we beat Kentucky, we're going to be looked at as one of the best teams in the country. In everywhere. Like, we're going to be probably top 3 in the AP poll at that point. Probably. And then net will probably jump top 5. And I mean, net will probably jump higher than top 4. Ken Palm and net. And I was looking at the bracket matrix. There's currently a couple brackets that have the Gators of a 1 seed.
Really?
With us. Yep. Our average seeding is 2.19.
Yeah.
And there's 3. Wait, am I looking at the right team? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 brackets. That was as a 1 seed.
Interesting.
So to answer this question overall, can the Gators win the SEC? Yes. Will they? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
Too much of a wagon.
I also just think there's too much variance. Like, I think this team could be, like, I could see this team being the team in the SEC that people feel best about going into the tournament, but they don't win the SEC because of happenstance.
Well,
you know, like,
I mean, if Auburn wins the SEC, I think everyone's going to feel the best about Auburn.
I guess it depends. I see what you mean. I guess I'm saying, like, if both teams are 14-4 and it's a tiebreaker thing and one's hotter than the other, I'm just saying, like, I think it's just there's so many good teams. It's hard to care that much about being number 1 when the top 5 are going to be high seeds in the tournament.
Another thing that I saw this stat. Well, I saw 2. Okay, I'll start with this one first. Of what was considered like the top 5 teams in the SEC, the teams in the top 10 of the AP poll, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama. Of those 5 teams, Florida is the only one who has to play all of the other 4 on the road. Like, we get a home and home with Tennessee, but then we have to play everybody else on the road, including Tennessee, because we play them twice. So we're the only one of those 4. So, I mean, and winning on the road, I mean, we are talking about Neville being maybe one of the best road environment or home environments in all of college basketball. I mean, winning at Bama, winning at Tennessee, winning at Rupp. I mean, it's going to be tough, but they can do it. I don't know if they will, though.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well.
So, I'm excited to see how the rest of this basketball season ends up going, hoping for the best. Do you think there's any like little worry that the team like could have like a major fall, like to that 8 seed line or lower?
I mean, I guess if there is, it's literally only because they are just pretty untested. Like, still at this point, like the non-conference schedule wasn't like, I'm not going to call it weak, but it certainly wasn't strong compared to what some of these other teams had to deal with. So. But I don't like. Even then, like, even if there's been some mirage, like there's some miraginess there, and they're not, as good as a team that would start, should start 13-0, like you would think. I don't see them dropping to be like an 8 seed. Like, I don't see how you have the kind of finish that they had like last year, which is what got them an 8 seed. So like, I feel like the floor here feels like a 5 or something like that to me. Honestly, it really does.
I'm looking at team rankings, like the odds to make the tournament. Florida is the 2 seed. We're the 6th ranked team. They're given 100% chance to make the tournament.
Wow.
So there is at least that.
Okay.
A 24% chance to get a 1 seed. Auburn, 95% chance to get a 1 seed.
Wow.
That's how dominant this Auburn team has been. The next best is Tennessee at 63. I don't know. I'm not fully sold on Tennessee.
Like, I'm not either.
Because like we saw them almost lose to Illinois, like almost, obviously. And then they struggled against. Oh, okay, there we go. They struggled against Virginia in the first half. I wouldn't even say we struggled. They were only up by 1 score. We were up by like 13 points against Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, at halftime. So it's like I should actually go on to this. I'd put it up. Winning on the road tells you how far you'll go in the tournament. I mean, you know what they always say, defense travels. I mean, now you look at our last tournament game, defense didn't travel. I mean, that's how good our defense was all year, I guess you could say. But they end up putting 100 points and still end up losing that game. So, and we have 3 experienced guards. That's probably the biggest thing you can have in March. Like, unless you're just the best team ever with sophomores who are going to be first-round draft picks. But, I mean, when you compare us to, like, a Duke who has a bunch of young stars like Cooper Flagg, I mean, if you're talking about in March, I mean, you can pick Duke, and I wouldn't tell you you're wrong at all. But you can also look at Florida and be like, oh, I mean, who am I going to trust to have those consistent games over a 6-game period? It's probably Florida. Like, I mean, or you look at the other teams like Tennessee, where they have the elite defense, but if other teams struggle while on offense, but then you have another team that kind of is hot, I can see Tennessee losing there. I mean, and Auburn is just insanely good. I don't know. I mean, what is Auburn's biggest weakness? I mean, probably consistent 3-point shooting.
Yeah, it's hard to find. It's kind of hard to find them though, because like they look very good.
They do. Like if you remember last year, we played them twice. We beat them in Gainesville, dominated by like 20. I think we won by 19, but we were up at like 25.
I was at that game.
Oh,
I was at that
yeah,
game.
Me too.
Yeah, it was
a fun game.
A good environment.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, I don't know if you can trust Auburn's 3-point shooting yet fully. Like of the elite shooting teams, they can play like it, but I don't know if you trust it yet.
Yeah,
that's probably because the reason they got dominated by us was because they couldn't hit a shot. Like they had opportunities, but it's like they were like that all season, inconsistent. So, I'm excited to see how the rest of the team plays.